All right. So let's talk about today's topic. So we're in a very unique situation, as most of you guys may or may not be aware. You only get 8 or 9 of these in your average life, and that is a brand new decade. We're going to be going into a brand new decade of 2020. Again, most of us only have 8 or 9 of these in our entire lifetime. And so the question is, the next 10 years, what are those 10 years going to be like, comparing that to the last 10 years? And my belief is, for most people, and this again is how most people are, is that the last 10 years and the prior 10 years and the prior 10 years, other than a few variances, are the same patterns, the same things happening in your life. And if you want something amazing, see, what ends up happening is most people underestimate or should say overestimate what can get done in a year and underestimate what can be done in a decade. You can totally change every single thing about you. There are people who have become, worth hundreds of millions of dollars in a decade from an idea in fact, like 5 or 6 years have created $1 billion ideas that they've sold out for billions of dollars. You can do so much within a decade, but it comes down to what you do in 2020. So I've got a kind of a series that I'm going to do between now and end of the year to get yourself primed, because it's not about creating resolutions. How many of you guys, I'm going to be curious here, how many of you guys have created New Year's resolutions for yourself in the past? Type in the chat window if you've created New Year's resolutions for yourself in the past. And my second question to follow up with that is, how many of you guys have actually achieved and gotten those things that you put in your resolutions? Most people don't do resolutions anymore because it hurts when you have a goal and you don't accomplish that goal. Or you create a resolution or resolutions about your body. That's one of the most common ones. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do all these things. And I see this at the gym all the time. And by the 15th of January, historically, they've done studies on this. By the 15th of January, 90% of people have dropped their resolutions already and given up. 15 days. In 15 days after creating these resolutions, and in fact, most of you guys are still on a holiday hangover all the way to the 5th of January. And by the 15th, so 10 to 15 days later, you already have given up. And so my goal is not to just help you figure out what to put down for your resolutions, to identify what your why is and what you're going to accomplish, but more importantly is actually get it done. Actually make it happen this year. And as you know, I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to assist you in getting results. That's what matters to me. It doesn't matter whether you like me or not. What matters to me is that you have a goal or you have something you want to accomplish, whether it be personally or professionally, and you get to that goal. That's my end game. So the first thing I want to talk about right now, the first part of this topic, and again, this is going to be a topic that I'm going to cover in different pieces, and each piece goes upon the next. So, just because you might, let's say, for example, if people are watching this one, you're in the first one. If you miss this one and somebody comes in next week, they'll want to watch this one because each thing builds upon the next. I've been very fortunate to be around and study massively successful people over the past 2.5 decades. And during that time, in the last 2.5 decades, you really easily identify. You start seeing patterns. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you study something or you study a group of people for 2.5 decades, you start seeing patterns. You start seeing patterns of activity. What those that are massively successful do and how they're obsessed and how they do things versus what average people do, and excuse my language, what losers do. People that just talk shit but don't actually do anything. What's even worse is, instead of just talking shit about themselves, they're talking shit about those that are doers because that lets themselves off the hook. So today's topic this is the holiday edition. Today's topic is how winners think, the winner's mindset over the holidays. Now, let's talk about the holidays, for example, and a difference of how people think. And I know this again because I'm talking to people all the time, and I'm talking to people who have become millionaires, who have become billionaires, and how they think differently. Here's the first thing. When they think about the holidays, what most of us do, they've done studies on this, most of us have already checked out from basically the 31st of October, Halloween. For sure, most people check out after Thanksgiving. They check out between now and end of the year. And here's the challenge. The challenge is that you need to gain market share. You need to move your business or your ideas forward. Or the job that you have, you want to get more money from your job, to stack more cash, to invest money, to create a future for yourself. Whatever that is that you're wanting to do, the one thing you need is time. you need is time. And I always love it. People joke with me about our company. I always say we have the best business in the world because you have the ability to be part-time. You decide which 12 hours you want to work, right? It's part-time, half the time, right? People say, well, I'm already working 8 hours a day. What are you doing with the other 8 hours is the question. I'm not saying don't enjoy your life. That's not what I'm saying at all. Here's the challenge. Our mindset out there is we want the best of both worlds. We want our pie and we want to eat it too, right? So we want to be able to, I guess it's called cake. Cake and eat it too. I make shit up, as you guys know. Enjoy your cake and eat it too. Thinking about the pie from Thanksgiving. So what we want to be able to do is we want to say we want amazing things and do amazing things. We want to have the lifestyle without doing the work. How many of you guys have read the book or heard of the book, The 4-Hour Work Week? Now, The 4-Hour Work Week, I love that book. Tim Ferriss does an amazing job in that book, and I'm utilizing several things in that book. But here's the challenge. We see the 4-Hour Work Week, and we're like, well, how do we get to that point? How do we have this freedom? How do we have all these amazing things? What I know is this. I know that some people maybe do and become influencers and do these things, but what you don't realize is for 99% of us, sitting on the beach somewhere and having all this money come in without doing this front end stuff first doesn't happen. The analogy I use is a train. You have the choice in business and in life to either stand on the sidelines and watch the train go by because there are people, how many of you guys would agree, there are people no more intelligent than you are, and in some cases less intelligent than you are, other than the fact they follow through, that have an amazing lifestyle better than yours. They have more money than you do. They have the more flexibility, and the most important word is they have more freedom, and they are able to do the things that you want to do, and they're traveling the world and do all these fun things. But what you're forgetting about is what they had to do to get there. You're forgetting about the back end piece. You're just seeing what they're doing and say, well, I want to model that. Well, you got to go through and do the work first. So the analogy I use again is the train. You can watch the train go by, and most people, that's what they're going to do, is you see people that are successful, whether it be in sports, whether it be in business, and you see them successful, and you just marvel at that success. You see the what's above the surface. You don't see either the foundation of the skyscraper, you don't see the iceberg below the water. You don't see those things. You don't see the roots that typically are just as large as the tree above the ground. What they had to do to get to the point of getting above ground. What you see is the massive success. You see where they're at today. But if you want to be on that train, and you want to at least get in the caboose of that train, at least be on the train and get to the point of having choices in your life and having flexibility and freedoms and be able to do some fun things, that's great. You can jump in. If you want to at least be in the passenger car that serves amazing steak and whatever you eat, if you're vegan steak, have champagne, and you want to get to the point of having an additional, $2, $3, $4, $5, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 coming in a month, if you want to, that's still, believe it or not, to me, that's in the passenger car. To do that, you've got to do some work. But here's the thing I'm looking for. I'm looking for the rare individual that wants to have their hand on the throttle, the driver's seat. And in the old train, right, if you have your hand on that throttle, you go through a certain car first. And that car is the coal car. And I'm telling you that when I study successful people, I look at the work they did, sleeping on the couches of their friends, going through and having failure upon failure. They're hopefully learning from that. Jazz and I watched the first episode of something on, I think it's Amazon Prime. No, it's the new Disney Plus, about the story of the Imagineers and Walt Disney and putting everything he had to open that park up and thinking it's maybe not going to work, and having all the naysayers and all the frustrations cost them triple what they initially thought. All the rains, all the challenges on opening day, that the boat was actually sinking. That main boat that goes through, the paddle boat was actually sinking. It was so hot that day that all the asphalt, women's shoes were sticking in the asphalt and digging into the asphalt. There was one thing after the next, the teacup ride. They had to take a teacup off. They had full-time welders because they kept breaking apart, and full-time welder would take one out, weld it quick, throw it back, spray paint it, throw it back in, and they're rotating through that. That was opening day. All the people that were the naysayers said how what a failure it was. And literally within 4 months, over 1 million people go through it. People see the successes of Disney. They see the successes of Henry Ford, the successes of every successful person out there, of Elon Musk, of the current people out there. But they don't realize they had to go through the coal car. They had to shovel a shit ton of coal to get there. So what I know is this, what it takes is hard work, and to be able to do the hard work, you've got to find the time. So specifically right now, I'm talking about how I gain market share, how the leaders around me gain market share, and how the winners think compared to everyone else. Statistically, they say the average person that works a job only puts in 4.5 hours out of that day. 4.5 hours out of the 8 or 9 or 10 hours, 4.5 hours of actually paying attention, not going on their phone, not doing Facebook shit, not just trying to look like they're busy, not go to meetings because they should go to meetings just to go to meetings, but actually doing the work that it takes to move the needle forward. In my opinion, and most people's opinion today, it's so easy to stand out and to make more money at your job and to be more successful because so many people are so average. They're so average. It doesn't take much to stand out today. So let me share with you what the winners do over the holidays. First, I'm going to talk, let's do that first. Let's talk about the holiday season. Let's talk about Halloween through end of the year. So you've got October 31st for Halloween. You've got November 28th, this last Thursday, right, for Thanksgiving. Black Friday. You've got Christmas Eve, December 24th, Christmas Day, December 25th, New Year's Eve, December 31st, and New Year's Day, January 1st. So if you add that all together, if you simply took those holidays right off, so you've got Halloween is one day, Veterans Day is one day. And now I looked at the calendar for this year. Halloween is one day, Veterans Day is one day, both were during the week. Thanksgiving is one day, Black Friday or football day or whatever is one day if you want to take that off as well, this last Friday. Christmas Eve is one day, Christmas is one day, New Year's Eve is one day, and New Year's Eve is one day. New Year's Day is one day. That's 8 days. That's 8 days off. And if you look at between Halloween and New Year's, there's 62 days. So there's 62 days out of the year. So basically, what is that? 2 out of the 12, right? So 1/6 of your year. 1/6 of your year is between October 31st, so Halloween, until January 1st. Okay? 62 days. So you take those 8 days off, for example, and most people are also taking off every Sunday. So I get that, every Sunday. I'm talking about what the winners do. The winners take those days off as well and enjoy time with friends and family and make it count and make it amazing. Those are 8 days. They're also taking Sundays off. I believe in a day of rest as well, or a day of God, or whatever you want to do on Sundays. That's another 9 days. Every Sunday from, again, Halloween to end of the year is 9 extra days. You add the 8 days off for the holidays, the 9 days off of Sundays. That's 17 total days, which leaves you 45 days to hustle. 45 days to move the needle forward with the company you're with. 45 days to work on your side business. 45 days to move that needle. Now, this is what most people do. Most people, here's what they did. This, again, I'm even talking about the average person, not what most people do. This is I should say, a barely above average. So the barely above average, here's what they normally do. They take off Halloween, which is one day, Veterans Day, which is one day, Thanksgiving and Black Friday, and they take off Christmas Eve through the end of the year, right? That's 7 more days, and that's 30 days off over the holidays. You've taken out half your time from October 31st to the end of the year, counting the Sundays, right? Counting the time you're taking off for the holidays and the days after. Looking at all those things, you're taking off 30 days. So that gives you 32 days left. That's 2 weeks difference, guys, between the winners and the average person. That is 13 days. So almost 2 extra weeks of time. What the winners are doing is they're also working Saturdays. Right? Now you may say, well, that wasn't a part of my job description. Do you want to make more money? Do you want to become more successful? You've got to find the time to do that, whether you're side business or to take the business you're in and be so amazing at the company you're with. You make more sales, sell more houses, be more amazing the company you're with to get a raise. It's all about having more cash flow and having more money at the end of the month. You're not putting money on credit cards. You're actually making money because you're investing that money. That is the name of this game, guys, is to have true freedom. So the difference right there is simple shift, which is working Saturdays between October 31st, end of the year. If you work Saturdays and you took off just the holidays versus what most people do, and you have an extra 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Okay? So think about it. Think about those numbers. So look at some of my notes here. Yeah, so let's talk about the year. And I'm going to talk about Elon Musk as well, which I love in his book, his biography, and also other successful people, whether you talk about Zuckerberg, you talk about Bill Gates. If you guys have watched the movie Inside Bill's Brain, you're going to see a pattern of activity. They are obsessed. They are obsessed. And I've told you guys before, I'm not that talented. I'm just obsessed. When I want something, I just laser focus on it, and all this other shit that happens, I don't care. I focus on what I want, and I have to pull those resources from somewhere. And the biggest resource that I always win if I'm competing against other people is I know I may not be the sharpest person. I know I may not know how to sell their product or service better than they do. I know that I may not have the best leads. I may not know these things, but I know that I will always, almost always beat everyone because I will work harder than they'll ever work. And yes, eventually I get to the point of having, something built up residually or having enough things closed or enough stuff in the pipeline that I can peel away because nobody can tip. I mean, I don't care who you are. You've got to regroup every so often, but I know that I can take massive action. In my career, I've had several pushes. We call it working hard for a season. And I've been able to do that several times and move the needle forward. I've had most of the time in three of my home runs that I've had in my career is I put in 2 to 3 years and just put my head down and focus on it. You've got to find those resources. So what if again, there's 52 weeks out of the year, right? So what if you simply, in 2020, I'm going to throw something out there. You think I'm crazy, I'm sure. What if in 2020, the brand new decade, to lay the foundation, to get momentum for the next decade of completely transforming not just your life, but your legacy, your kids, your grandkids, and having everything you want as financially solid and having true freedom, being able to do what you want, whenever you want, however you want, and not having to worry about it. You first got to shovel coal. And my opinion is take Saturdays, at least Saturdays, and work Saturdays. If you're not working your job, do something else, a side business, or double up on your job and get more cash flow to be able to invest. So that's 52 days out of the year if you work Saturdays, 52 days out of the year if you work Saturdays. And if you work 8 hours a day, that's every Saturday, it's 416 hours extra a year, or 10 extra weeks at 40 hours a week. That now gave you 20% more time, guys. 20% more time. What if you invested that 20% in scaling something forward? And that's even if you didn't do anything after your job. Again, I always have the thing when people tell me they don't have the time. I mentioned this earlier. I'm already working 8 hours a day. Well, the other 8, what are you doing? You're sleeping 8 of those. The other 8, what are you doing? So take 2-3 hours with your family and kids, which is way more than most people get in the first place or even do. Structure that time a couple of hours. And that gives you 4 or 5 hours every night. What are you doing between, when your kids go to bed? If you have kids, what are you doing between 10 o'clock until 2 in the morning? That's where I built my business. That I can look at all the people that I know that are massively successful. They found the ability to do it no matter what they had to do to keep cash flow coming in, keep food on the table. They found a way to get more time. I'm finding something easy for you guys. What if you decided all of 2020 Saturdays? That gives you 20% more time, guys, to move something forward. Elon Musk in his book, here's his quote: "Work like hell, put in 80 to 100 hours a week every week. This improves your odds of success greatly. If other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, even if you're doing the same thing, you know that you will achieve in 4 months what it takes them to achieve in a year." Now, again, I'm not saying it to be that crazy. I'm simply saying if you want your life to change, you've got to be crazy for a while. I'm not saying be crazy forever. And you say, well, man, if Corey's saying put in 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, where am I going to have my life? Most of you don't have a life anyway. You can't do what you want to do. You work a job you don't like currently, most of you guys. In fact, 85% of people don't like their jobs at all. Right? You're doing things, you don't get to travel, the things you want to do. You're putting money on credit cards. You don't have any money invested. The average person retires dead or dead broke at 65. Most people now at 80 because they can't retire. How much fun is that? I'm simply saying be obsessed, be crazy for a short period of time. Can you do that is the question. Can you pay the price for a short period of time? It's amazing to me. I'm going to pick on some of you guys that are part of my 6-figure legacy inner circle program. So I put out a guarantee to people that came into a training we did in Atlanta. That guarantee is that if they can give me 10 hours a week, doing what I tell them to do, 10 hours a week, From those 10 hours, 3 hours of those every week are phone calls. 3 hours a week are phone calls. And we put that out to 26 people. I'm sorry, 24 people. And those 24 people, we have 4 of them that are actually putting in the time, actually doing the work they should be doing. Now, the challenge is for most people, again, is they will find excuses. Do you realize what it would mean differently, again, if you're putting in 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, and even if you put in 20 more hours a week and did something productive with that time of moving the needle forward? Now, again, I'm going to say this. I always put the disclaimer here. If your life is where you want it to be, don't watch me. If your life is where you want it to be, don't do any of this stuff. Stay where you're at, because what I know is that if you're not changing, you're going to get the same things you've been getting. What they say insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. Every single year we do that same shit. We go to, create some resolutions maybe and go to the gym a little while. By the 15th of January, we've given up because you're doing the same patterns of activity, the same habits you had, and you're not able to build anything of momentum because you start and stop and you stutter step. I'm saying this, if you want your life to change, as my mentor Jim Rohn said, for things to change, I must change. For things to get better, I must get better. My hallucination is 4,000 or 5,000 people that'll watch this week. I congratulate you for at least doing that step because you're already in the top 5%. I'm saying I want you to do something. I want you to get off center line. I want this to be your decade of totally dominating everything you do and changing your life. And I know that 10% of you that are actually watching this, that are already in the top 5%, but if 10% of you watching this, right, of all my followers, all those that'll watch over the next year, of 150, 200,000 people that'll watch this, this video just in the next month, and will watch it, how many millions of people over the next year, I'm happy if I get 1 of you, 5 of you, 10 of you to actually do something. Are you going to make excuses? Are you going to live radically different and say, or are you going to say, oh my gosh, I'm working 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week. I'm not sure if I can give up my football on Sunday or Saturday. I'm not sure if I don't want to go to the bars every single weekend. Trust me, I'm coming from the other side of it. Those that knew me, how many of you guys knew me when I was, in high school or out of high school, my early 20s? I didn't go to the bars. I didn't go party. I didn't do those things. Now, I still do certain things for when I choose to for fun, but not every single weekend like most people do. I'm not doing that. I'm not watching every single football game that comes out. Not because I don't enjoy those things, but because I have bigger things. I want to, instead of watching somebody else get a touchdown or catch a ball, I want to be excited about my own life and what I'm doing, what my kids are doing, and what I'm creating. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about going to the Bahamas or going to Cancun for a week and a half and having everything paid for and getting a yacht. That's what's exciting to me. All these little piddly small things don't excite me a heck of a lot. I still do things. Again, I'm not a hermit, but I'm simply saying if you want to change, you've got to change. Write that down. For things to change, you've got to change. And I want this decade to be your decade. Type in the chat window and say, this is going to be my decade. This is going to be my decade if it's going to be your decade. And that means you've got to make 2020 your bitch. You've got to make 2020 your bitch. You've got to make 2020 do what you want to do and not procrastinate. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do it anyway. And what you do in one thing, you do in all things. If you're going to the gym and you procrastinate and don't go to the gym, you're not going to push through your things. If you're not doing the things that are small, you're not going to do the things that are big. I'm saying you've got to draw your line in the sand, and you've got this month to get everything ready in your head, and you've got to actually hit the ground running with so much momentum, so much passion in 2020, and you've got to have a big enough reason to do it over the next decade to have things be amazing. Honestly, all of you guys watching this, in 3 years, you can have every single thing you want if you're willing to pay the price. And what's going to be amazing is some of you guys are going to do it. Your family, your friends, those around you are going to say, oh my God, Karen, you're lucky. You're so lucky. No, you fucking are working 50, 60 hours a week, working out every single day, taking care of your kids, juggling shit, and building a business on the side. But you know what? They may not see it. But you don't care. You know why? Because you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your kids. You're doing it for your family. You're doing it for your legacy. think about the time you're going to spend, guys, over the holidays, and choose wisely. And I'm going to give you an admonishment, which is do and act in a sense of urgency. Don't just take the holiday season off. Take the holidays off, guys. Don't just party on Saturdays because you want to party on Saturdays. Use that to move the needle forward and start creating the habit this month. 21 days to form a habit. If you started now, right? Started now, you're going to have a habit. Now we go into 2020 with true momentum. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.